It's a matter of power, right? It's an issue of power and dominance. If you do have dominant relationships in a country, and people are able to use their power at the expense of others, you don't have a market economy. This basically just means there is oppression. There are ingredients that are necessary for the market economy. It's not a freestanding, let alone little thing that sets somewhere and grows on its own. It requires the rule of law. It requires some institutions that are functioning. And in the absence of that, you will not have what would be a market economy, or I see in one of the comments, a free and fair market. So there are more things that are necessary. But what I'd like to highlight is that we do also have the benefits of those individuals that are interacting freely and creating, for example, a pencil like that. So we need to look at both aspects, right? One is that we wouldn't have a pencil if it was all about a government authority try to plan our writing tools, because usually they are not having the capacities to come up with an ingenious idea like that. On the other hand, you just don't want to have the situation that you have lots of little children mining the graphite in China, or women dying in factories in Bangladesh. I mean, these things cannot be part of a market economy. So yeah, I'm fully agreeable with you on this. And this is all about human interaction. This is what we're talking about, right? And so basically the idea of a market economy, and I wouldn't even call it a free market economy, because if it's not free, it's not a market economy. So I would just call it a market economy, is based on the idea of a market. And what is a market? I mean, when you go to the market, I mean, okay, let's not talk about online ordering at the moment. But if you really go to a market, what you meet is people who sell something, others who also want to buy something. You observe what's the price like and when do you go, because you're interacting with humans. And that's, I mean, if you go back to the word market in all languages, it usually is a place where people come together, not only to buy or sell, but also to sit and have a cup of tea, have an interaction, just chat, find out what's the world like at the moment. So it's all about human interaction, absolutely. And the idea is it should be as free as possible within the limits that we just mentioned, you know, so that dominant structures, which start at home with men over women and rulers over subjects, etc. So it goes, it permeates the entire society, is there. So it's part of the equation. Thank you for that. Happy to do that briefly now, and later you will see in my presentation that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. You know, what does that mean, people work with each other freely? I mean, we just had this concept. It requires that they are able to also compete with each other. I mean, the word competition doesn't always have a good connotation in languages, but when you look at it, if you go to a market and everybody is selling, let's say, a watermelon, and everybody is selling the watermelon at the same price, and you have no choice because they have all agreed to sell it at 100 baht, then the consumer is the one who's suffering from this. So we need to have a market with some competition so that I can choose who has the better ones, who has the cheaper ones, whatever I'm looking for. And that competition needs to be enforced. And there is a legal aspect in this. We need to make sure that there are rules and that people have to play by these rules. In a very simple market structure, usually you have some sort of market supervision. In a wet market, I don't know how that is in Thailand, but you may have some person who is actually the market manager of a wet market, making sure nobody is cheating when it comes to the weights. You know, I want to buy 100 grams of something, but then they have manipulated the scale and I get 80 grams. You know, this kind of things. From early days, in the medievals and earlier, this was a main function of government, to make sure people are not cheated, and there is actually competition so that we have a choice. And that requires a legal system. And so in some countries, you have these commissions in charge of competition to have legal authority. So they can basically pass a verdict and sentence groups that are abusing their market power And again, I'm coming to that in my presentation, but I do believe the legal system plays a large role in exactly that. And not to speak of the environmental factors, the social factors, etc. Of course, that also needs judicial element. Otherwise, it's all nice language, but not leading to any substantial consequences for the players.